Hello, Thomas Lewandowski here with a tool that you can just copy this into your own document. That's the idea. The description will have a link that goes to this document, or at least a document that has this in it, and you can put this in your own work and use it. This video is where I explain how it works and what you might be able to do with it. So you're writing a paper, this is your HL essay, to a rubric. That's not really the most fun way to write. In fact, it's one of the least fun ways to write, but it is something that you are asked to do, and you are doing it because you are awesome people, students, and you're going to learn a lot through the process. But the most important question, unfortunately, that you need to ask yourself when you're getting to a revision stage or a point where you say to yourself, okay, I think I'm done with my essay, the most important question you can ask yourself is, have I created the paper that the rubric says I need to create? So that's why I made this. This is designed so that if you look at the little pieces, there's 4 criteria, A, B, C, and D. You can put those right in front of your snout, while you're working on those final revisions, and constantly ask yourself as you go through every paragraph, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? And so I'm going to show you an example. This is a paper that one of my students wrote some years ago for like a slightly different assignment. It's not an exact match for the HL essay. That's because I didn't want to, put something out there that would be an exact match, because I just wanted to help people. I want you to use this on your own paper, of course, on your own work. But there's a couple links here that might be helpful to you. One of them is to a video, this video. So if you put it in your paper and you forget how things are supposed to work, you can click there. These sentence frames for literary analysis, I made them. I really feel like it's maybe the best thing I've ever made. So it's a bit of a slog going through it all. But at the end of it, you'll learn a lot about how to write sentences that do literary analysis. There's a link to a video where I looked at some of a one-page extract from Murakami's work, and like, what is the reading process like? Because writing a paper like this is all about a reading process and then a writing process. And so your reading process, what you're hopefully building as you work through the IB program for literature or Lang and Lit or whatever you're doing, is that you're becoming a certain kind of reader, a hypercritical reader. And you can turn it on and off and still enjoy things that you read. But the idea is that sometimes when you're reading, you are really picking apart the choices that the author is making, and you're noticing how figurative language is used in literary devices and all of the different important tools in the toolkit, the writer's toolkit that he or she has used to create a work that is powerful and important and valuable, meaningful. So I did that with a one page of Murakami's work, and then right next door to that is a 7 pair I called it a 7 analysis of video, 7 paragraphs example, because I give it a 7. I think it's good. I think it's good. So if you're saying to yourself, well, what's the bar? What does an excellent paragraph look like? What does excellent literary analysis look like? I think that this example is pretty good. So those are the links. And now I'll talk a little bit about the tool, and then I'll apply the tool a little bit to this essay. It's an okay essay. It's not a great essay, but it's an okay one. The kind of one that I would steer this student towards revisions. I would say you need to probably think about these aspects of the rubric and the degree to which you're performing at a high level. The level that is like the baseline for a pass for each of these criteria is a 3. So you want to say to yourself as you're reading your own paper, and these are the questions that the rubric is asking you to do. How well does the candidate demonstrate knowledge and understanding of the work chosen? So a 3 is kind of like, yeah, the student is demonstrating some knowledge. To what extent does the candidate make use of knowledge to draw conclusions in relation to the chosen topic? Are you drawing conclusions? A 3 is like, yeah, there's some conclusions there. Yeah, you're doing it. How are the ideas supported by the references? Yeah, they're supported. That's what 3 is. It's kind of like, yeah, pretty much. Yeah, you pretty much did it. To what extent? Now moving on to criteria B. To what extent does the candidate analyze and evaluate how the choices of language, technique, and style and broader authorial choices shape meaning in relation to the chosen topic. How well is the student doing that? Is the student doing it? Yeah, it's happening. Yep. That's kind of like a 3. And then once you get to 4 and 5, is like, is the student doing it? Yeah, doing a pretty good job of it too. Yeah, doing a solid job. Clearly doing it and doing it pretty well. And then that 5 is like, oh yeah, that student is really like, yeah, definitely doing it in a commanding way, not just doing it, but like doing it with some style, doing it with some energy, doing it with some vigor, doing it in a way that is like authentically interesting, maybe surprising, maybe maybe powerful. So that's kind of like the 3 to 5. And then once you get to a 2, it's like, is the student doing it? Not really. No, maybe, but I had to work so hard reading it to figure out whether they're doing it or not, that it's like, and then those translate from marks into the grade. This is kind of like an estimate. It's not like exact, because they don't they do that uniquely for every year based on statistics and all that kind of stuff, but like if you got 3s across the board, you probably have a 4, which makes sense because 4 is the passing grade, for an IB assessment or an IB course on the 7-point scale. And then it just goes up to 5, 6, and 7. 7s are like unicorns, Is that a 7? Did I see a 7? No, not really. Yeah. So I've color coded them, and I've done this in my own writing, like at different times in my own like career, or my own development, my own journey, my own educational journey. I've had to write papers towards rubrics, and I've made these for other papers with other rubrics. And the idea is like, you could go through and be like, is this sentence doing it or not? Is it doing it? Is it happening? Is it happening? Where's it happening? So with this student's work, if I was going to apply this rubric or give them feedback based on this rubric, the idea is like, as you're reading it, you're saying to yourself, is this happening? Is this happening? Is this happening? So when I read this first paragraph is really all about like interpretation. Is there a clear interpretation? Is there a clear line of inquiry? Is there a clear trajectory? I keep doing these gestures. That's what I'm doing it for. It's like, are we going somewhere? Where are we going? And is that place where we're going to like an interpretation that could be defended based on analysis and evaluation of specific authorial choices in the text? So my first feedback for this title would be analysis on Dante Alighieri's bias towards characters in Inferno. Is like we've got some capitalization things that are kind of inconsistent, and we also have this preposition here. Really, when we do analysis of rather than on, I would say that throughout the reading of the work Inferno by Dante Alighieri, the characters are very appealing due to their stories and their reasons for being in hell. Dante dramatizes and alters these characters' stories and places them in a certain circle of hell. Many characters in Dante's Inferno are based on characters in real life. The author demonstrates bias towards his characters. So what I'm saying, what any assessor would be saying as you read this first paragraph is like, where's the interpretation? Where's this student's unique interpretation based on their reading of the text? And this might be it for this sentence. So I'd say, okay, maybe we're getting to something that could be a thesis statement. Is it a great thesis statement? Well, let's see. The author demonstrates bias towards his characters, going against his instructions of not showing pity or indignation. Count Uglino was shown pity, and Philip Argenti was shown indignation. These two characters are built on real people, and so I'd say that kind of hits the minimum bar for something that I could say, yeah, that's an interpretation. That's okay, based on there. I would say it could be a 3, it could be a 2, or it could be a 4, depending on what happened. Probably not a 4, because to me there's just not, there's not enough. I don't know. It doesn't seem. I don't know. That's my first impression. I would share that with the student. I would say it looks like you might be hitting the bar, depending on how the rest of the paper shakes out. It could be a 2 if it ends up being kind of just a surface level, because Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about that. And so I would do that, and you can do that with your own paper. Look at it and say like, how much meat is there in the meat sandwich? Sorry. Yeah, and then I would look at a paragraph, and really any random paragraph, and just kind of say like, where's the analysis? Because there's not really going to be any analysis and evaluation of specific choices in that first paragraph, but there is like, okay, how's my focus going to be? How well organized, focused, and developed is a presentation of ideas? Okay, so that first paragraph is like an invitation to, I would say that based on this, Count Ugolino is the first person, and here this paragraph seems to be about Count Ugolino. So that's like baseline. Again, this is like like maybe a 3 for focus and organization, because it's clear that 2 things are going to happen in the paper, and those things are listed in the order in the introduction that they're going to happen, and that's like baseline. Okay, interpret. It's all right. So I don't. There's no quotations in this first paragraph, so that's a little bit. Let me just read the first one, I guess, and like you don't have to watch this video to the end if you don't want to. If you think you've got it and you want to start using the tool, go for it. But let's just see what I think about this first paragraph. To start off, Count Ugolino was the character that Dante seemed to show pity towards. Topic sentence. Okay, topic sentence. Count Ugolino's story begins with the explanation of why he and his sons were killed for being traitors. In the 13th century, when Italy was divided by 2 parties, Ugolino was named a traitor. So it seems like this writer has decided to do an HL essay, and they've brought in outside information outside of what's in the text, which is totally fine that you can do, but it's not cited here. So that's a little bit problematic because, where did this information come from is a big question. When Italy was divided into 2 parties, Ugolino was named a traitor. He was placed in the 9th circle, which is reserved for betrayers of kin, country, guest, and benefactors. Reserved for betrayers of kin, country, guest, and benefactors. That phrase, I'm just gonna be around here. Like that phrase makes me think like I would reading that paper, I would Google that, because that's kind of a mature, especially like the way the phrases are put together. That's like I would be like, where'd that come from? Is that a quotation that was not quoted because it seems a little professional? Ugolino was born in Pisa into the Della Garcia family, a noble family of Germanic origins, due to their alliance with the Tuscany. Okay, so here's a lot of information about, due to the fact this is history here. This is all history. And where did it come from? It's not cited. That's a lot of historical information that is not analyzing or evaluating choices in language, technique, and style. So that's the kind of thing that that you want to be aware of. That you want to say to yourself, "Oh goodness, this whole paragraph. It might be an okay paragraph, and looking at it, you can say, well, it's going to score. It's going to be part of my language score. So am I using good language? Yeah, pretty good language. Pretty good language. Some suspicious language that I would definitely check out as a teacher, and but it has an element of clarity to it. So you're like, oh, this is going to increase my language score. Maybe could be in the 4 zone. Could be like better than just like, is it okay language? Yeah, maybe it's a little better than okay language. So it might be a 4 for language. But is any analysis and evaluation happening? No, not at all. So it's not going to move that score up or down, and it just hasn't happened yet. And if the whole paper is full of paragraphs like that, then the score would be a 1 or 2 because there's just nothing there that the assessor could say, that's an example. That sentence right there is doing what the paper needs it to do. So, yeah. Now, maybe here's one here. Let's see. Ugolino is in the 2nd ring of the lowest circle, gnawing at Archbishop Ruler's head. Grammar error here. The sinner raised his mouth from his funeral. Should be a colon. The sinner raised his mouth from his fierce meal, then used that head that he ripped apart. Thank you, Dante. Grammar error here. Archbishop Gregory trapped Ugolino and his sons and starved them to death. At first, begins to eat his hands, his children. So what I'm looking for is, and here it is, his children. So everything here is basically a little bit of context, and then a quotation, and then an explanation and more context for that quotation. But there is not still analysis. This imagery helps the reader picture how he was being eaten away, both literally and figuratively. In the story, it is implied that he either died from going mad or due to starvation, since he refused to eat his children, but ended up eating them either way. So this, I would say, this one sentence could be classified as analysis, but it's kind of light analysis. You know, if you compare this sentence to the kinds of sentences that you saw in my 7 example, you'll see it's quite different in how it operates and the depth that it goes to for the effect on the choices and how the choices, should be interpreted and shape meaning. And this sentence here goes back to, so I would say, like, based on my reading of the first, 3 paragraphs of this particular writer's draft. This is a draft. This is where you get feedback. Would probably be close to a 1 for analysis and evaluation, maybe a 2, but definitely not a 3. You definitely wouldn't read that and say, like, yeah, this student is doing it. This student is not doing it. So I think that'll be pretty much it. I think that's enough of me talking about how this tool can be used. Good luck with your revisions. I have every faith that you're going to produce just dynamite papers, and you got this. How do you turn this thing off? I don't know how to turn. What has happened here? Something went wrong.